So, welcome. My name is Ryder Maven. I am the host of the Wrestling Received podcast. I cover all things Judgment Day. Dom, Liv, Raquel, Finn, GD, Roxanne, Poor Carlito, and the El Grande Americano Army and El Grande Americano himself, also known as Los Americanos, as we found out tonight. This Raw did a lot and advanced a lot. And I think I figured out what the thread is for Dom. And that thread for Dom is a king needs a loyal court. Now, why am I saying it? Keyword being loyal. Because what did JD do to Dom tonight? He didn't have his back. This after as many times Dom has had his back and JD has seemingly chosen Finn's side over his. Who had Dom's back tonight? Roxanne. Someone who really doesn't have a pony in the show, per se. Yes, it's for the Judgment Day, like she said, but she's getting less out of it supporting Dom, especially when you go counter to JD and Finn, especially, than just fading into the background and just listening and not saying anything. But Raquel did, because I am side-eyeing her because she needs to pick a lane, but I'll get into Raquel later. But compare and contrast what Roxanne did compared to JD. JD took Finn's side, pretty much did not question him, has not questioned him. She questioned him all the way back in Backlash, but he hasn't questioned Finn recently. But with Dom, whatever Dom does, he gets questioned. And this has been a thread that's happened throughout of Judgment Day. And I have to say that it gets annoying how they pick and choose the history, kind of like how what Rhea did today, saying, I know how family betrays people. And I'm like, woman, I know you just did not say that because you're the one that did it first, but I digress. But it's a picking and choosing of history because we know what Dom has done for Judgment Day. And maybe that's why he declared, I am the Judgment Day. Because now, when he's saying, I am the Judgment Day, he's pretty much talking about himself and only himself. So when he's saying Judgment Day, so while he's saying Judgment Day, he's meaning himself. And Magoo is saying, why would JD turn on Finn? It's what, coming at it from Dom's perspective, just to preview what I'm going to say, it's just that he expects people to have his back. And that's a common thread with John throughout the years. He wanted Ray to have his back with Buddy and Seth. He wanted Ray to have his back with the Judgment Day. And now here he wanted JD to have his back because he's always had somebody's back. Look at Dom's history since he's came to the WWE. He's always wanted someone to have his back. But sooner or later, they don't. Because Ray chose Buddy and Aaliyah over Dom when Dom had problems with Buddy and didn't want him dating his sister. He had problems with Ray choosing Edge because Edge created the Judgment Day and was causing Dom all his misery. And he thought he would be able to help his dad fight the Judgment Day, but Ray ultimately chose Edge. He thought Rhea and Damien had his back, but Damien, that no aura son of a bitch, tossed Dom under the bus without Dom doing anything to him. Rhea would flirt with other guys, and then when Dom would want to claim her, she didn't want to be claimed. And now look here. Dom had JD's back since whenever Finn wanted JD in the Judgment Day. When Damien was tossing JD around, and when JD was getting tossed around by Damien, it was Dom having his back. So now when Dom would need somebody to have his back, and it unequivocally, even though whatever he's done, because that's happened before, everybody else gets to do their shit and everybody will still have their back. But with Dom, it's always something. JD doesn't have his back. He's mad at him. And so now Dom sees that JD doesn't have his back. And he just signed his own death warrant along with Finn. with JD, this might be a first time that Dom is doing something unjustified. With Ray and with Damian and Rhea, it was justified. But with JD, he's in a gray area of where it's not justified. But to continue with my point, it just looks to me that Dom is culling the herd. He's kicking out people that's not loyal to him. Roxanne proved her loyalty. Raquel is a different story. We don't know. She's being side-eye-ish. I don't know. But he's just looking to cull the herd and want people loyal to him. Liv is loyal. Roxanne is loyal right now. And that just pretty much proves that Dom is pretty much right. He's making his decisions for him, and it's just going to be a matter of time where Dom turns, because we know what happens to people when they treat Dom this way. They get turned on badly. And this just shows that we might be going into a darker version of Dom. They may not want Dom to be face. Keep telling people they may not want Dom to be face. He's getting cheered, but who else is getting cheered as the face? Becky and Seth. Now, Becky is getting booed against AJ and stuff like that, but she was ultimately getting some cheers. Seth gets the cheers, people sing his song, but he's still heel. They might just be positioning it now where Dom is doing something unjustified, but still in line with his character's history. So that's why I'm saying we're here with JD. Dom did something unjustified. He left JD hanging. Even though how I feel about it with JD, why are you acting like this now? But that's just me defending Dom, because I'm a ride or die for Dom. But with JD and Dom did something by leaving JD high and dry, prompting Finn to actually show up and do some actual help. And then of course that just shows again how what it justifies Dom's actions is pretty much what I'm trying to say. When you have Finn come out and immediately help JD, but Dom could not get that, then you're just justifying Dom's actions. So we're going to see probably Dom start acting unjustifiably. He's going to be a king. He might even be a mad king of the luchadors. And he's just spinning it now that everything is for himself, and he's wanting to use it selfishly. And at this point, as a Dom fan, I can't really blame him just because of what he's gone through. If you look at it from other points of view, you'll probably see it more of a healer side, and that's probably what they're going for. Because it'll be easy to turn Finn face, it'll be easy to turn JD face, because JD was getting starting to get some cheers. And I know people are saying, well, Dom can be face with the cheers. They may not want to go that direction. You can just have the cheers. Heels get cheered. Look at Roman Reigns. He got cheered a lot, but he was still acting heel. And like I said, there's Seth, there's Becky, there's other heels in the company that got cheered. It's up to the WWE if they want to turn face or not. And I don't think they want to turn Dom face because they want him heel against Ray. It makes no point to have Dom face when you have a match and a feud, but possibly a retirement feud for Ray for Dom. So you have Dom just starting to act unjustifiably. But in his mind, it's justified. And that's what makes really good heels, because really good heels all have something where they're justified and it makes sense. Look at Drew. He had to go through all of the shit with the bloodline. That's a justified heel. Now, he takes things too far, but that's what makes you a heel. You go through too far with it, then you go from being justified to being a heel. And that's what's going on with Dom. He was justified, even though they made him a heel. He was justified with Ray. He was justified with Edge. He was justified with Rhea. He was justified with Damian. Now here, he's probably justified with Finn, but JD hits that gray area where it's not really justified anymore. And like I said, maybe that's the point. But to go back to my original thought, it's just Dom culling the herd. He wants people loyal. And Roxanne might not be doing much for Dom, but she has been increasingly turning to him and having his back. And I think he's taking that more than dealing with Finn's bullshit. Because that's the same thing that happened with Rhea and Damian. Like, he had to deal with Rhea, he had to deal with Damian, and then there's Liv. I'm not saying he's cheating on Liv. I'm just saying that it's a little bit easier to get in Dom's ear when you're a little bit more sympathetic and you're appearing like you're acting on your own. And right now, Roxanne is pretty much acting on her own and implementing and doing things on her own. So it's less likely for her to have like I said, if she doesn't have a pony in the fight. It's not like she has something wrapped up within like Finn got her something. He got her in the Judgment Day, but it's not like she has something tangible holding on to him where it would make sense for her to go for Dom. It's a lot easier for Roxanne at this point to go against Dom, especially with how Finn and JD are acting. But like I said, I think we're just going into this Liz King court thing where Dom wants people loyal to him and only him because he just dealt with so much shit over the years. Even going back to 2005 with the custody case, he's always been used. And I think at this point in his character trajectory, he's probably tired of that bullshit. And he's just going to start acting really selfishly. And then when you get into that part of the heel dynamic, then it makes it easier to go to a face run after that. You see what I mean? But let's get into Raw. And I'll break this down a little bit more. But like I said, I don't expect everybody to agree with me. I think people are just really seeing this and where Dom is going to get betrayed and all that. But like I said, I really think at this point you can't have Dom being betrayed because he's already done things on his own to be smart about it. So let's get into Raw, shall we? Just 1 second. I just got a message. So Monday Night Raw, when Raw was starting off, we saw Rusev shove Dom into some stuff backstage. People were pointing out Dom was on his own, but that doesn't bother me because a lot of people be walking backstage by their own. There's not like when was the last time we saw Judgment Day walking around as a group? It's yeah, they're either in the clubhouse or they're doing something walking around. It might be two or three people, but it's not like everybody's a group. So I don't really put stock into that being by himself. And like I said, maybe a friend of mine pointed out that a lot of people wait till Dom's on his own to start shit, namely AJ. So it could be just a case of Rusev biding his time, waiting for Dom to go do something, and then he strikes. He could have been with Judgment Day at that time. So who knows? From what I gathered from that little interaction, Dom didn't really seem all that scared. Compare Dom's reaction to Rusev shoving him against the lockers to how he's being portrayed scared during that Rusev match, and it's not really jiving. It's just something I picked up on. Dom got shoved into Dom got shoved into shit backstage, but was Dom running off afterwards? No. Rusev walked off, but usually if you don't want that smoke, you would be trying to go the opposite direction. We didn't really see that from this interaction. So I'm not really seeing Dom quote unquote scared. Now you can put the blame on Dom being scared to excuse what is in action regarding JD. But I'll talk about that later. But in that little minute interaction backstage, it didn't really strike me that Dom was scared of Rusev. He almost looked offended because he could shrugging motion because he had both of his belts, so he's doing a shrug motion. So it wasn't like he was scared. So Judgment Day Clubhouse, and then we see Judgment Day. We saw Judgment Day walking around in the clubhouse, and then Dom comes in. Dom is asking for help against Rusev, and then Finn says he's busy. It's not like we weren't helping before. Now you want to make it a convenient excuses, but I digress. Dom says no, we're fighting on the weekend. He still wants to help. And Finn says ask El Grande, and Dom says he's in Mexico. Then Dom's over there. He's stressing. He starts asking JD for help. JD says he's busy. Now this is where I have issues with JD because you were asking Dom about El Grande and you were being reasonable about it, but what changed from last week to this week where you're annoyed with El Grande, with Dom having El Grande? Because that seemed like that would have been best served last week to be annoyed. So why is this coming up out of the blue now? First you were cool celebrating with Dom, and then now all of a sudden you have a problem with El Grande. So it's like he talked to Finn and then got his mind changed. And that's probably why we getting this little Dom thing where Dom has made up his mind regarding JD. Because if you were okay with it, but then Finn, you talk to Finn and then all of a sudden you're not cool with it, then you pretty much, as me as a Dom fan, you're pretty much getting what you deserve. You talk to Finn and all of a sudden you change your mind about it. But anyway, after JD is saying he's busy, Roxanne pipes up and says, JD, you should help. It's for the Judgment Day. And then JD was like, all right, fine. And then Dom does the hilarious thing and saying, oh, great. Now that you're on, I got you a match with Rusev later on the night. And JD's like, what? And he can't believe it and looks at Raquel, and Raquel is looking side-eye-ish during this whole interaction. And then Raquel was like, I gotta help Roxanne help out with Roxanne for her match against Bailey. Bailey leaves to get ready for his match, and then Dom is left alone there saying, for the Judgment Day. This is where I get the bit of when Dom is saying for the Judgment Day, he's pretty much saying it's for himself, because like I said, if he's saying that I'm the Judgment Day last week, then that's pretty much it. He's like, he wants it for himself and not necessarily quote unquote Judgment Day right here. But I have like my notes here, like Raquel has the side eye, and I'm like, pick a lane, woman. Raquel has been irritating me with how she goes back and forth with her interactions. She's wishy-washy with Roxanne. She's wishy-washy with Dom. Pick a lane. Either you're supporting Roxanne or against Dom, or you support both, or what. Pick a lane. It makes no sense. Why are you side-eyeing here now, but then other times you're okay? Wishy-washiness really irritates me. JD having issues, like I said, with Dom is kind of jarring. Yes, he questioned Dom about El Grande, but he knows that Dom hasn't been getting help either. And that's what I was having. This is why I have a problem with this storyline running so damn long, because Finn has been doing so much shit that now all of a sudden I'm supposed to forget all that and be like, oh, okay, Finn is oh, if we're going like with Finn is supposed to be right, or JD is supposed to be right about this situation, now I'm supposed to believe that, we're supposed to ignore Finn not helping Dom to be like, okay, yeah, JD's right about El Grande and being upset about El Grande. We know why Dom had to get help from El Grande. It's because Finn wasn't acting right. He was getting himself DQ'd. He was getting himself thrown from ringside. He was being slow with the help. We know why Dom did this. So this is why this part of the storyline is still fucked up, because we know why Dom needs El Grande or had to go to El Grande. It's because Finn wasn't acting right. So why is it now you got JD upset with Dom about maybe going with El Grande, but he should know why that Dom had to get this extra help, because he was there when Finn got himself kicked from ringside. He was there when Scrap Daddy barred them from ringside. He should see this, and maybe that's the point. At this particular at this particular juncture, maybe that's the point where Dom is kind of done with JD, because maybe he's feeling that JD should see what Finn has been doing, getting himself kicked, getting himself banned from ringside, being slow with the help. Maybe Dom is like, okay, I know you're seeing all this, but you're still choosing Finn's side over mine, then there you go. So maybe that's the point. Maybe Dom is just like, he just had it with seeing people always take other person's side despite what they're doing to Dom. So maybe that's the point. Roxanne spoke up for Dom without prompting. Again, it's huge. They've been making a point of Roxanne speak up for Dom, and they have quashed a lot of the Dom Rock stuff. Maybe get spun up again. I don't know. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that right now it's squashed. But Roxanne has been making some deliberate choices in supporting Dom. We still do not know what they talked about. And maybe that's what's going on here. We might have the Dom's Angels coming around, and we might not be. Or it could just be Dom with Roxanne, which is what we figured that plot line was. Maybe Raquel goes with Finn but we get Dom, Liv, and Roxanne, and that's the trio for a while. So it still can go either way. I'm going to go into how I think things will split later on, but it's huge that Roxanne is still choosing Dom. And like I said, she has no pony in this fight, no skin in this game. So her speaking up for Dom is it's still kind of huge because it's a lot easier to go with Finn and JD being upset with Dom than just piping up and saying like, "Hey, do this for the Judgment Day." But then maybe she's taking her cues from Dom, like, "Hey, do it for Dom." Maybe she wants to do it for Dom. Maybe she's got that crush. I still say she might have a little bit of a crush. Not that they're going to do the relationship. I have to keep clarifying myself on that. It could be that she still has a crush on him. Maybe that's how she got into the Judgment Day. I had that video, what, a month ago, pretty much saying that. Maybe it's just like she just has a crush. And there's nothing wrong with crushes. It just depends on if you act on them or not. But maybe that's why she's in Judgment Day, and maybe that's why she's sticking up for him. Could be. Then, like I said, Dom's rallying cry for the Judgment Day might be because he is the Judgment Day, which is a rallying cry for himself. Roxanne versus Bailey. Big Mommy Cool and Raquel look great. Big Mommy Cool and Roxanne look great. Sorry. Bailey was looking great as well. Lyra came out to even out the odds. It was a nice little match. Nothing special. Bailey gets the win when she snaps from being a hugger and listens to the voices and becomes, like, I guess, the role model Bailey. And she won with Bia Rose Plant on Roxanne lost. As soon as I saw the match announced this earlier this evening, I knew that she was losing, and I really did not want that. And I really don't like how Roxanne and Raquel keep getting fed to people. They should not be getting fed to people. I know Liv ain't around, but they should be building up their wins and exerting, getting their dominance and getting stronger so that when Liv does come back, they're more on an even level. And right now, you got Roxanne still losing. Now, next week we have Bailey versus Raquel next week. We'll have to see if Raquel wins that one or not. I'm not even sure. We might get Lyra come out there and maybe accidentally cost Bailey the match and Bailey snaps on her. I don't know. But so I just don't like Roxanne and Raquel being used as fodder here. No bueno. And then we have JD versus Rusev. JD is still upset with Dom. Dom was having JD's shirt. It's a good match between JD and Rusev. I wasn't really paying attention to it too hard, but it was a pretty good match. Rusev was pretty much jawing at Dom all throughout the match. Rusev synced in the camel clutch to win. Dom had got up on the apron to distract the referee, but he didn't get in the ring to help JD. So Rusev won. He tapped out. Rusev kept the hold on until the demonic demon known as Balor came up and took out Rusev. Once they got JD out the ring, Finn and Dom were arguing over Dom's lack of help. People are saying that Dom was scared, but I don't see Dom as scared because Dom. But okay, here's the history thing again. I know I've been bitching about WWE rewriting history, ignoring history, and things like that. But if you've been watching Dom as long as I have, you know that Dom has gone toe to toe with big people to help other people. We've seen him do that with Damien. We've seen him do that with going against a Cody Rhodes or a Seth Rollins at the time, who was face, a Jay, anybody. We've seen Dom do that. So here it just feels like it was just a deliberate choice for him not to get in the ring to help JD. And again, this might just be one of those things where it's quote unjustified for him to do it because he knows that he doesn't have JD's loyalty. Some say it was kind of a smirk there while he was on the apron. It does sometimes, you can't really tell. I have to probably look at the video again, but it might be a smirk. It'd be diabolical if he was smirking while JD was tapping out there. But I think right here now, it's just, I'm doing this on accidentally on purpose thing again. Because like I said, he's gone into the ring with big people and has no problem with it. So for him not to do it again with JD stands out, especially with Rusev, because he could have used either one of his title belts to kind of not Rusev for a loop there. The JD might not have deserved it, but like I said, he just might be culling the herd. You're not loyal, you're out. Finn showing up actually showed that he can be effective. And then again, that's the thing again. It's showing that Finn can be effective with help when he can be. And this is what makes the whole storyline irritating because you have Finn show up and be effective with help and take out Rusev pretty easily almost. But you have the issues with Finn with Dom. Now we know why he wasn't doing that with Dom, but it just exposed Finn here. So again, maybe that's a twofer. Maybe Dom exposed Finn for not helping as he should, and then he's showing JD that you're not loyal to me, so I'm not going to help you anymore. Maybe that's a two birds with one stone. And then we have JD Finn and Dom arguing about lack of help, and I'm like, why are you arguing with Dom over lack of help? Nope. Dom didn't even really argue with Finn over his lack of help. So it's just one of those things that always annoys me with some of these with the storyline. And you should have somebody bring it up. Nobody brings it up. Somebody should have been bringing it up on Dom's side, like, hey, you haven't been helping me either. Why is it always spun to with Dom that he always has to explain things or have to justify things? Because as I stated on the X earlier tonight, Dom has always been operating under rules for me but not for thee, because he's always had to operate with him being meat shields for people, him always having being put in matches where he didn't want to do the matches. He was always having to soften up people. He's always had to do that for the years that he has been in Judgment Day. So now when he puts JD into a match, everybody wants to get all hurt, but that's what he had to do. When somebody needs to be a meat shield for Dom now, they don't want to do it. But it was okay when Dom had to do it. And maybe that's just going to come around again, where he's like, I'm done with doing things for other people. And we might just get that selfish, manipulative, heelish Dom that I want, where he just is just really selfish about himself and he's really manipulative. And I'm kind of hoping it is, because he could be doing something where he manipulates Roxanne. We don't, like I said, we still don't know what he was talking to Roxanne about. If he wants to get into his manipulative side, because hey, he's son of Eddie Guerrero and the son of Filthy Animals Rey Mysterio, like we were talking about yesterday. So if he wants to tap into that manipulative side with Roxanne, he could promise her anything that we don't know about. We don't know what he's promised with El Grande. And he can just start being that selfish little prick. And we go from there. And if he's in that selfish area, like I said, it's a little bit easier to start getting more of a genuine face turn out of that, because you can start seeing, hey, this is the errors of my ways with a face turn like that. Also, during this match, pay attention to the commentary between Joe Tessacor and Wade Barrett, because they brought up JD and Finn having issues. They did not bring up Roxanne and Raquel. So that's significant there. They weren't saying all of Judgment Day was having issues with Dom. They said JD and Finn. So there's a split. After this match, and before I get into that, it does look like Finn is looking a little bit more facious helping out JD, because that's a face move. You coming out to help your buddy, that's a face type thing. I know people don't really want Finn face because look at what he's done. Finn has done a lot of shit, but that's usually with a par for the course for heels. Your heel is going to keep doing shit until they turn face. So, but with Finn, like I said, it's a little bit easier to turn him face, and I think it's a little bit easier for him trajectory wise to be a face when going against Dom than just him being a heel, because he's not going to get those boos. He's not. He barely gets the reaction now when he goes to NXT. And I know NXT is a different beast, but it's just a little bit easier to maintain a face reaction for Finn and act like a face than it is a heel. And then next week, they have said that it was going to be Dom versus Rusev for the Intercontinental Championship. I got that spoiler due to being subscribed to Fightful. I just didn't post about it. I just let my group chat know that. But I am thinking Dom has a 60 to 75% chance of winning that. Triple H is going to Triple H, and maybe they pull a trigger here where Dom loses it, but I don't think they will do that. Like I said, if you're going to do Dom versus Finn, that almost needs a belt. And I don't really think they're going to be putting the Megas Championship on the line for that. So I think it's going to be Dom with versus Finn for that belt soon. And Dom's going to have to pretty much keep that title. With Rusev, Dom can have his El Grandes help him, and he can have somebody else debut to help him as well. Could be a Tony D'Angelo. My group chat always jokes about Otis popping up. It could be any number of people that could help Dom Rusev. And then doesn't have to necessarily have to be like a pinfall victory. It could be count out, could be DQ. It could be a number of things that could get Dom's get out of there with the title through this by the skin of his teeth. So I'm thinking 75% Dom retains. Now we might get something where Finn tries some shit and then it exposes him, and then Dom finally has enough and turns on him. So we could be having some major movement next week. I don't know. But yeah, just to kind of wrap some things up, it's just looking like Dom is starting to act without justification and start acting more selfish because he always has a history of people doing things to him. So he's going to start acting first. Strike first, ask questions later. The story is moving like we're supposed to forget Dom has been dealing with ineffective help, but like I said, that might come up later. Maybe that gets brought up later by Dom. Hey, I've been dealing with ineffective help and I wouldn't have to get El Grande if y'all were acting right. Roxanne spoke up for Dom without prompting, and that scores the brownie points. Like I said, that's just showing her loyalty to Dom and just Dom to Dom. Yeah, I am the Judgment Day. Do it for the Judgment Day. Raquel needs to pick a lane. I don't know what her deal is. JD has shown who he's loyal to, so he's going to be losing that belt with Finn sooner rather than later. That could be to the Bras, that could be to the El Grande Americana Army, Los Americanos, now that they're called. So I think JD just pretty much signed his own death warrant for that. And that was Raw. Like I said, I am thinking now that we're going to get Dom's Angels. Now, I was being facetious yesterday and I was saying, hey, we might get it, maybe not, but I do think we do get Dom's Angels. It's going to be Dom, Raquel, if she doesn't go with Finn, it's going to be Dom, Raquel, and Roxanne, and then Liv when she gets back. Now, why do I say this? Because Liv needs something to do, and Liv will need to, and you need to build up Liv and whatever her fuse is going to be with Roxanne and Raquel. And I really don't think that's going to happen this year. She says probably going to return before the end of the year. I say probably Survivor Series, maybe. I don't really see seeing her pop up next week. If she does, I'm going to be super surprised. But with Liv, she needs to have Roxanne and Raquel around to build up her story. If everybody turns on Dom, Liv can come back to that, but there's still nothing built up for Liv. That'll be just her trying to get some revenge for Dom, and then we're gonna have people bitching because that's her storyline about a man. Again, I don't want to be hearing that shit. Have them build their own feud, Roxanne and Raquel, you're gonna do it that way, and then you can have that happen next year, probably close to WrestleMania, which is probably where they want that to happen in the first place. So we're gonna have the split. Finn and JD get hunted. They get their tag team titles taken away because Dom promised them something, either El Grandes or he has a handshake agreement with Paul Heyman, either or. Then Dom runs with Stan Raquel. When she gets back, you get Dom probably getting either paranoid about loyalty, things like that. He just gets more and more crazy about it. And then you can start running a paranoid Dom, a very manipulative Dom, go from there until they want to start running Ray's retirement stage. Probably by the time that happens, then you'll probably see Dom ready to go to a base type character, where he'll be embracing the cheers. But that's what I think. It was a lot. We finally got some storyline advancement. I'm glad that nobody was really forgiving each other. I don't really like Dom kind of groveling, but I get what he was trying to do. He was trying, I think more when Dom does things like this, I think it's more of a test. That he's been labeled a trickster for a reason. he does things purposefully. He dumbs himself down to make others look better or think they're better. And I think that was just the case with Dom here. He knows that if he comes in a certain way, they're going to react to him a certain way. And because if he goes in as King of the Luchadors character, then you're not going to get the same reaction here than when that happened tonight. So that was rough.